The market is dumping again as HBAR and XRP are touching some lows. How low will things go, and will we get a rebound on Wednesday? What's going to cause the rebound? Well, we'll talk about that, along with some bigs out there and their market predictions. New floor prices. Set your targets. That and
I say lots of naughty things, so here's your warning.
Look at the 15-minute candlestick for XRP as well as a 15-minute for HBAR. I just gobbled some at 1287. Love it. Now, before we get into the news, like all the red up on the screen and the potential red or green event that we're going to have this week coming up, we know the deal. We do your comments. Why? Because you, the viewer, matter most. And by the way, everyone, happy Sunday. A little ASMR for the listeners out there. That's Guate iced coffee. Chris JM says, Klaus, I listen all the time in the car. Your mic is clear. Buy some commodities instead. I buy shiny stuff when it's on sale, but recently the shit hasn't been on sale. I've been picking up lead, brass, and copper. Oh, you're talking about those commodities. I get what you're saying. Anyone else out there buying the stuff outside of the precious metals like lead, brass, and copper? Let me know. Richard Padilla, hello, kind sir. Happy Sunday to you. Says, thanks for all you do. Been into crypto for a year now. I make more with regular stocks. With stock, when a company gets good news or bad news, it moves up and down. With crypto, I don't get it. With all the good news, it barely moves up, but dives like crazy with just a speck of bad news, and they all move together. Richard, that's because in the stock market, these companies share their financials, their reports, and so forth. So you actually have like organic, real numbers for these companies. So for instance, Amazon comes out, they say, yo, we made X amount per share. Our expenses were this. We see a big fear coming up in the next year because of this. They give you reasons in these quarterly reports, right? With crypto, you don't have that. Crypto is susceptible to the big macro head and tailwinds, right? The big rate cut things really affects crypto. Why? Because it's still a super speculative market. We're still waiting for the players up on the screen here, Richard, to produce something. And we don't get those same reports with crypto. It's not like XRP comes out and goes, well, XRP had this for production this week. No, there's nothing like that in crypto. In fact, even the companies behind these things, the majority of them, overwhelming majority, are private, so you don't know what their financial situations are. You get a lot more data in the stock market. That's why I trade stonks as well as crypto. And yes, I was buying early this morning. Bitcoin 88,606, ETH is 29.59. I gobbled up a little bit of BTC and I gobbled up a little bit of HBAR. XRP still above the $2 mark. I'm not going to touch XRP above $2. I want it to be below before I buy. XRP at 201, Sol at 129, XLM at 23 cents. Well, HBAR, 12.9, and I did some buying. Now, let's talk about volume. Volume right now, horrible. And I told you this on Friday. We're going to go into this weekend, and my only fear is low volume, low interest pullbacks, and it's happening right now. Volume for crypto, $78 billion. Now, I expect that number to rise with the price actions going on because I bet a lot of bigs are going to go be buying this dip. In terms of institutional inflows and outflows, it sucked. The last 30 days have been dominated by outflows. Zoom out to the 1 year and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You had a nice string of inflows, and then right here around October, we started taking a poop-a-roni. So low volume, low interest, market pullback quite heavily on these candle sticks. And we've got a big event coming up on Wednesday that could help us or hurt us. Now, Peter Brandt is out there, and Brandt has got some new BTC floors. You need to hear this because remember, if BTC goes down, it takes the rest of the market with it. According to legendary trader Peter Brandt, BTC bulls might want to brace themselves for a potential drop in prices. Brandt's latest chart analysis shows a 5-leg climb followed by a broken curve, signaling a correction ahead. He's highlighted 2 key price levels. Now, if you miss any of this, it's all linked in the description below. You could go back and either rewatch the video or go in the description and read the articles yourself. I'd rather you rewatch the video. He has highlighted 2 key price levels that could mark significant support for BTC in the upcoming months. The first sits around at 81.8 with a deeper zone at 59.4. Yo, if we get to 59.4, you're going to have some massive panic hit the market. You're talking about players like BlackRock, Strategy, Metaplanet. All of them would be in the deep red for their BTC holdings. That's right, they'd all be upside down. Brandt, known for his extensive experience in market analysis, doesn't view these price levels as signs of panic, but part of a natural price correction. He suggests that Bitcoin's recent upward movement may have overstretched as traders priced in the anticipation of a policy pivot. Basically saying that when BTC touched 126,000 back in October for new all-time highs, that it was pricing in the fact that the Fed was going to start shifting, that the Fed was going to start rotating. And here we are, only a few days away from the Fed and their rate cut announcement. Nice. Will the crypto market crash end this week, or will the rally begin? One potential catalyst that may help stall the crypto market crash is the upcoming Federal Reserve interest rate decision, which will come out on Wednesday. Now, here's the deal with that. We're all pretty much expecting that we're going to get a quarter cut. In fact, here's the latest odds for you. The meeting happens in 3 days, 3 hours. We're going to be live streaming it. 86% chance that we're going to get a cut. But it's what Jerome says, though, because if Jerome says, hey, look, inflation is rearing its ugly head, we might have to pause for longer in 2026, because remember, Jerome Powell is still the head of the Fed until May of 2026, and he's been a little slow to the game along with his compadres. So if Jerome Powell is like, look, we'll give you the quarter now, but we're probably going to hold for months on end, the market will shit itself, because you're going to have what? Restrictive, tight economic conditions for the crypto market for months on end. Now, if he's like, look, we're cutting it a quarter, we're not worried about inflation, we'll probably cut it another quarter in the January meeting, maybe even the March meeting, the market will be okay with that. So yes, we expect a quarter cut, but it's the words he says. So this is how this works out, okay? On Wednesday, we're going to be live streaming this. I suggest you join. Why? Because the chat is lit and the streams are freaking awesome. At 2 p.m. Eastern time, he's going to come on the mic, or he's going to announce what the rates are, right? The cut, the pause, etc. At 2:30 is when he goes on the mic and starts talking. That's when these candlesticks absolutely start moving. It's that 2:30 p.m. mark. So right now, we're thinking the Fed could either save us or hurt us. Historically, the final decision has been one of the most important ones in the market, as it sets a tone for what to expect in the next year. This meeting will be key because it will shed more light on the divisions among officials, with some of them supporting cuts and others supporting a pause. Now, what's cool about this meeting, and I'm going to bring up the Fed stuff. Remember, this is all linked in the description below. You see this little asterisk right here with the 9th and 10th? This is a meeting with economic projections. So you're going to get projections from the Fed. You only get that a couple times a year. You're also going to see how these Fed people view things. There's going to be a lot of plot charts. This is the big end of the year meeting, and it's setting the tone, and we're going to see how divided these players are. For example, an official like Jeff Schmidt has opposed cuts, arguing that inflation has remained above the target of 2% for over 4 years. He argues that cutting rates will stimulate inflation. On the other hand, Fed officials argue that bank cuts would be good because of cracks in the labor market. A report last week showed that the economy lost 36,000 jobs, the worst performer in over 2 years. Therefore, a cut would be dovish and would help end the crypto crash and would help the jobs market. So you have a few things going. You've got a shitty job market, which lowering rates would help. You have rising inflation, which lowering rates would make that worse. You also have a housing market, which is absolutely a mess. Lowering rates would help that as well. So we're kind of screwed. And this is what I've been telling you about, where Jerome Powell and the Fed left the turkey in the oven for too long. They left rates too high for too long. Sorry, I couldn't say that correctly. And now we're dealing with the consequences. And again, 86% chance that you're going to get a cut from the Fed. Now, HBAR price fell 11% after failed breakout. Well, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about this move right here. I gobbled some of this up down here. Now she's back above 13 cents again. So there was an opportunity. Had some alerts go off on my phone. I took advantage of that opportunity and bought a big gag of HBAR. Throwing it out there. I've also bought some BTC. Not that much of BTC, but for me, BTC under 90,000 is good as a long term. I play a little safe stuff in there, and I also play the risky alts. So HBAR volume, 129 million, nothing too crazy. But we're starting to see the prices, right? We're starting to see things. Oh, look at this. See, and this was my signal. We broke through this zone right here that we dealt with on the 30th of November into the 1st of December. That was my key to buy. I was looking at prices. I set my alert right here, right at like 1301. Boom, the alert went off. I waited a little bit because that candlestick was still going down. Boom, I did some buying. Now, buying's not for everyone, and I know some of you out there are frustrated. Zooming out on the 15-minute, you're like, bro, this still sucks balls. I know, trust me. but you gotta know when to take advantage, and you have to know when things could be turning around. You don't want to buy as the market's already on its way up, because then you're going to be missing out on the juice. By the way, here's the 1 month chart for HBAR. About a month ago, we were at 20 cents. Look how far away we have slipped. Now, the first ever XRP spot ETF has crashed 20%. That's right, it's lost 20% of its value. Canary Capital's XRP ETF, the first US spot XRP ETF, has dropped 20% from its initial level. So, has the volume and inflows been good for the ETFs? Yes, it has. But remember, those products represent native token, and native token right now is, oh yeah, getting pounded. Here's the 1 month chart for XRP. You can see exactly what I'm talking. Yeah, we were way up here at 250, and now we are back at 200. It's like a 20% loss. And the ETFs are reflecting that as well. So yes, the players like Canary Capital are making a lot of money because they make money on it, right? There's percentages. I think theirs is like 0.37 or 0.25, whatever they charge on theirs. The fees, right? So they make money on these fees. So whether the market's up or down, they don't care. They just want people to buy and make transactions with it. They want inflows overall to be up. So yes, inflows historically up, juicy for the ETF issuers, bad because it's following native token, and native token is down. XRP right now in the last 24 hours, you could see that move, but it bounced right at that $2 mark. So I said I'm not chasing XRP. Sub $2 XRP gets me excited. But when we're above that, I don't even care if it's a penny above that. I just have to wait. And you're like, bro, what do you mean you just have to wait? Well, go to the candlesticks and look, here's some opportunities. Here's sub $2. Here's some here. Here's some here. Plenty of them in the last month and a half. So I'm not going to chase that action. Volume for XRP, under 2 billion right now, down 25% to 1.95 billion. So XRP, HBAR, the alts, BTC and ETH, we're all waiting what the Fed says. And we're waiting to see what the Fed is projecting. We're going to find that out on Wednesday, so join us for the live stream. So right now, all eyes are on the Fed and what happens on Wednesday. Like I said, we expect them to cut, but are they going to be negative in regards to the rest of the cuts? Because inflation is still going up. We're getting an uptick in that. And lowering rates with rising inflation could create hyperinflation. See, that's what I've been telling you. Jerome Powell and the Fed screwed the economy over. So we've got some big macro bubbles that we have to digest. But those macro bubbles are causing some really juicy prices, in my opinion. You might want to buy lower. That's all up on you. And I'm going to take advantage of those opportunities. I'm going to be strategic. I'm not going to chase, and I'm going to have my targets. Now, will the market rotate? Yeah, of course it'll rotate. We got to see what happens with the Fed. We have to see what happens with the job market, with the housing market. We still got to go through all the tariff stuff. Yeah, there's a lot out there right now that's hanging over the heads of crypto. And with crypto being super speculative, it's susceptible to all that downside risk. But it's also susceptible to what? The upside moves. Remember when we had Crypto Week, very much like Shark Week? A little discovery action right there. Except Crypto Week was in Congress, and that's, not as cool. It gave us juicy ass prices. We've got subcommittee upvotes scheduled this month for crypto regs. Will we get a rebound like that, or will that come with the bigger bill voting, which would happen in the first part of 2026? We do have catalysts for crypto, but boy, you got to deal with some poop sandwiches right now. The question is, do you have the capital in order to make some moves? Do you believe in your story, right? Like, I have my conviction. I've told you exactly why. I think that Trump is going to come in, and I think he's going to save it because it's going to make his family a shit ton of money. So I think Trump's vested interest in crypto is enough for them to push crypto regs across the finish line because he wants to bail out his family because his family's deep into crypto. So that's my big conviction. That's my big thesis right here. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. And what are you buying on this Sunday morning? Because everything's on sale. Hence, the red background. So choo-choo what? Well, you know the deal. Lemon peel. Happy Sunday to you, and choo-choo bitches.